An exciting story of redemption, love, passion, and new beginnings. She was sold as living currency. She escaped before being touched. But now, years later, she's back, and the man who lost her will discovers she was never his. Watch this story until the end. You'll be surprised by this tale. If you enjoy stories of love and romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. We post videos like this every day. Continuing. Emily Collins was promised before they even knew what desire was. She was born from the ruins of a forbidden love between a New York magnate and a nameless ballet dancer who disappeared when she was still a child. Emily Collins grew up like a shadow inside a golden penthouse on the Upper East Side of New York that displayed power but hid cracks beneath every imported chandelier. She was never acknowledged as a legitimate daughter. She was an inconvenience, a living reminder of a failure. She was too beautiful to be invisible and too dangerous to be loved. The 4,000-square-foot apartment on the Upper East Side overlooked Central Park, but Emily always preferred to look at the ground. She grew up hearing her stepmother's footsteps echoing on the Carrara marble, the dry sound of Louboutin heels marking the rhythm of a life that would never be hers. Melissa Collins, Richard's second wife, treated her with the cold courtesy reserved for trusted employees. Never cruel enough to appear mean, never kind enough to appear motherly. Her father, Richard Collins, owned one of the largest construction companies in the country. Buildings with his name dotted New York City like monuments to his ego. Sometimes he would look at her during dinner when Melissa wasn't paying attention, and Emily saw something that could be affection or regret. But never love, never enough. At 19, Emily had become a woman who made people stop on the street. She had the dark eyes of the mother she never knew, and the silent determination of someone who learned early on that she couldn't count on anyone. She studied business administration at Columbia University, not because she dreamed of managing businesses, but because it was what was expected of her. She was fluent in French and Spanish, knew how to play piano, and had a natural elegance that made Melissa grind her teeth in anger. But Emily carried secrets that she herself didn't fully understand. Sometimes late at night, when the apartment was silent, she remembered fragments. A woman with long hair singing a song in English mixed with Spanish, the smell of jasmine, calloused hands that cradled her. Her mother, Laura, had been a dancer at Lincoln Center before becoming Richard's mistress. Emily knew this because she had overheard the maids whispering, not because anyone had officially told her. Laura died when Emily was 5 years old. A car accident, they said, but Emily always suspected there was more to the story. Melissa had arrived in Richard's life just 2 months after the funeral, and the transition had been too smooth, too planned. On the morning when everything changed, Emily was having breakfast alone on the balcony when she heard raised voices coming from her father's office. She recognized Richard's voice, tense as she had never heard it before, and another voice, deeper, with a distinct southern accent. "You know I don't have a choice, Caleb," Richard was saying, and Emily almost dropped her cup when she heard the desperation in his voice. "The federal investigation is looking into everything. The Swiss accounts, the inflated contracts, the land grabs. If they discover the money laundering scheme—" "I'm not worried about the investigation," the deep voice replied. "I'm worried about you paying what you owe me. $40 million isn't money you lose in the couch cushions." Emily slowly stood up, approaching the partially open door. Through the crack she could see a tall man with his back turned, wearing an impeccably cut dark suit. He had black hair with some silver strands at the temples and a posture that radiated power even in silence. "Caleb, please," Richard was sweating despite the air conditioning. "You know my situation. The company is being investigated. The assets are frozen. I need more time." The man turned, and Emily saw his profile. He must have been about 40, maybe a little older. He had a small scar on his chin and eyes that seemed capable of seeing through lies. He wasn't handsome in the conventional sense, but there was something magnetic about him, an energy that made the air around him seem denser. "Time is exactly what you don't have," said Caleb, his voice low but cutting. "My international investors aren't known for their patience. They want their investment returned, and if they can't get it through money—" I know," Richard interrupted, running his hands through his hair. "But there has to be a solution. Something I can offer as collateral." It was then that Caleb's eyes found Emily's through the crack in the door. She should have backed away, should have pretended she wasn't listening, but something in the way he looked at her left her paralyzed. It wasn't lust. It wasn't casual interest. It was as if he were evaluating something, calculating. "Perhaps," said Caleb slowly, without taking his eyes off the door, "there is something you could offer." Richard followed his gaze and paled when he saw Emily. "No," he whispered. "You can't be thinking. She's your daughter, isn't she?" Caleb crossed his arms. "The dancer's daughter." Emily felt the blood freeze in her veins. How did he know about her mother? "Caleb, please!" Richard was almost begging now. "Emily has nothing to do with this. She's just a child." "She's 19, Caleb said coldly. "She's an adult, and she's very beautiful. My international partners appreciate American beauty." The words fell like lead in Emily's stomach. She finally understood what was happening. It wasn't just debt. It was something much worse. "You have 24 hours to decide," Caleb continued, taking a card from his pocket and placing it on the desk. "Either find a way to pay me 40 million or give me the girl. She'll spend some time with me. Let's say as collateral. When the debt is paid, she'll return home." Emily knew he was lying. She knew that if she were handed over to this man, she would never return, at least not whole. "I won't hand over my daughter," Richard said, trying to sound firm, but his voice trembled. Caleb smiled, but there was no humor in that smile. "Yes, you will, because if you don't, you'll both end up dead, and I'll take her anyway." He headed for the door, and Emily ran to hide behind the hallway column. She managed to see him pass, and for a moment she was sure he knew she was there. But he didn't stop, didn't look back. After he left, Emily listened to her father crying in his office. They weren't dramatic sobs, but a low, desperate cry of a man who had lost everything. She wanted to console him, wanted to say everything would be all right, but she knew she would be lying. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony looking at the city lights, thinking about her mother. Laura had died young, had left a small daughter behind. Had she foreseen that one day Emily might end up like her? Is that why she had tried to escape? At 3 in the morning, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Richard appeared at her bedroom door, looking older than she had ever seen him. "Emily," he said, and his voice was broken, "we need to talk." She already knew what he was going to say before he even opened his mouth. She saw it in his posture, in the way he couldn't look her in the eye. "You're going to hand me over to him, aren't you?" she asked, surprisingly calm. Richard collapsed in the chair near the window. "I have no choice, daughter. If I don't do this, he'll kill us, and he'll take you anyway." "Who is he? How does he know my mother?" Richard hesitated. "Caleb Morrison, was a partner in some of my businesses. International investments, imports, that sort of thing. He knew your mother from Miami before she came to New York." Emily felt something cold spread through her chest. "He knew my mother. Laura worked for him before we met. She told me once that she had fled Miami because of a dangerous man. I never thought it was him." "What did she do for him?" Richard closed his eyes. "You'd better not know." But Emily already knew. She had already put the pieces together. Her mother had been more than a dancer. She had been one of Caleb's women, and she had fled when she fell in love with Richard. And now, 20 years later, he was collecting the debt. "Tomorrow morning," Richard said with a broken voice, "you'll be taken to his house in Miami. He said it's just temporary, that when I manage to pay the debt—" "Dad," Emily interrupted, using a word that rarely left her mouth, "you and I know that debt will never be paid, and even if it were, do you think he would return me?" Richard started crying again. "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to protect you." Emily stood up and went to the window. New York stretched endlessly before her, millions of lights blinking like earthly stars. It was her city, the only place she knew, but she knew that if she stayed, she would never be free again. "You don't need to protect me," she said, her voice firm. "I'll protect myself." Richard looked at her without understanding. "What are you talking about?" Emily turned to him, and Richard saw something in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. Determination, Strength. The same strength he had seen in Laura years ago when she decided she would no longer be controlled by powerful men. You'll tell him I ran away, that when you came to tell me about the deal I was already gone. Emily, no, he'll kill me, he'll find you anyway. Not if I disappear properly. Emily was already thinking, already planning. Mum had an American passport, didn't she? You kept her documents? Richard nodded, confused. They're in the safe, but Emily, you can't. I look like her. You always said that. With a little change. In hair with the right makeup I can pass as her. Laura is officially dead, but in other parts of the country she can still be alive. This is madness. You're just a girl. You don't know what the world is like out there. Emily smiled, but it wasn't a sweet smile. It was the smile of someone who had decided that she would rather die trying than live on her knees. I'm not just a girl, Dad. I'm the daughter of the woman who managed to escape Caleb Morrison once. And I'm your daughter, the man who built an empire from nothing. You think I haven't learned something? Richard looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly he got up and went to the safe hidden behind the painting on the wall. He took out a yellow envelope and handed it to Emily. Your mother's documents, he said. American passport, birth certificate, everything. She always said that one day she might need to disappear again. Emily took the envelope with hands that weren't trembling. Thank you. Emily, Richard held her by the arm. If you leave, I probably won't survive what he'll do to me. Emily looked him in the eyes. You should have thought about that before you bet me at a poker table, Dad. Richard released her arm as if he had been burned. Emily was right, and they both knew it. I'll leave a letter, Emily continued, saying that I found out about the deal and that I'd rather kill myself than be handed over to him. You'll find the letter tomorrow morning after I've already left. You'll show it to him, you'll cry, you'll do the whole act. Say my body was never found. And if he doesn't believe it, he will believe it, because it's exactly what my mother would have done, and he knows that. Emily spent the rest of the night packing a small suitcase with just the essentials, dark clothes, documents, all the money she had managed to save over the years. It wasn't much, but it would be enough to start. At 5 in the morning, when the apartment was still silent, she left the letter on the kitchen table and went out through the back door. She took a taxi to LaGuardia Airport, where she bought a ticket to Miami using her mother's passport. From there, she would catch an international flight. As the plane took off, Emily looked out the window and saw New York disappear into the clouds. She didn't know if she would ever return. She didn't know if she would survive what lay ahead. But she knew she would rather die free than live in chains. It was 7 in the morning when Richard found the letter. His hands were trembling as he read, Dad, when you read this, I'll already be dead. I preferred to choose my own death, rather, than be handed over as merchandise. Don't look for me, don't cry for me, I chose this. Tell him that he got what he wanted, to completely destroy our family. Tell him the blood is on his hands. Emily. Richard collapsed in the kitchen chair and cried like he had never cried in his life. For Emily, for Laura, for all the wrong choices he had made. And when Caleb arrived 2 hours later, he found a completely broken man holding a letter that would change everything. Caleb read the letter in silence, his face an impassive mask, but Emily wasn't dead. She was at 40,000 feet, flying to Miami, with an American passport and a new identity. She was fleeing to freedom, or at least, that's what she thought, because Caleb Morrison hadn't gotten where he was by accepting defeats. And Laura's daughter had just become the only game that really mattered to him. The hunt had begun. Miami was a city of golden exiles and manufactured new beginnings. Emily discovered this in the first week, when she realized that half the people she met were running from something. Refugees from power, from the law, from the past. She fit in perfectly. The apartment she rented in South Beach was small, but it had an ocean view that calmed her. Every morning, she woke up to the sound of the waves and for a few seconds forgot who she was. Then reality returned like a stab. She was Emily Collins, the illegitimate daughter who had fled a fate worse than death. But officially, she was Laura Mendoza, an American of Hispanic origin who had decided to restart her life in her mother's hometown. The first months were pure survival. Emily had studied English all her life, but living in English was different. Every conversation was a test, every document a lie to be sustained. She got a job at an art gallery in Wynwood, where her exotic beauty and knowledge of European art made her popular among rich clients who bought paintings like they bought shoes. The gallery owner, Carmen Rodriguez, was a 50-year-old Cuban woman who had arrived in Miami in the arms of an American husband and stayed. After he traded her for a younger version, she saw something familiar in Emily, a woman too beautiful for her own good, too smart to be merely decorative. "You're running from something," Carmen said one afternoon as they were closing the gallery. It wasn't a question. Emily stopped counting the cash register. "Why do you say that?" "Because I ran too." "I know the look." Carmen lit a cigarette, something she only did when she was about to talk about the past. "The difference is that I ran to something. You're running from something, and that's much more dangerous." Emily didn't answer, but Carmen continued. "Whatever it is, whoever it is, you'll have to face it one day. People like us can't disappear forever. We're too beautiful. We attract too much attention." That night, Emily dreamed of Caleb for the first time. In the dream, he was standing in the middle of the gallery, looking at her with those eyes that seemed to see through everything. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. He approached slowly, unhurried, like a predator who knew the prey had nowhere to go. "You look like her," he said in the dream. "Laura had the same look when I met her. Fear mixed with defiance." Emily woke up sweating, her heart beating so hard it felt like it would explode. It was 4 a.m. before she managed to fall back asleep. Meanwhile, 5,000 miles away, Caleb was sitting in his office in Miami, looking at the photos he had spread across the desk. Photos of Emily over the years, some taken without her knowing, others taken from the social media accounts she had deleted before fleeing. Richard had told the truth 2 days after handing over the supposed suicide letter. Not out of courage, but out of terror of what Caleb might do when he found out on his own. "She didn't die," Richard had confessed, his hands trembling as he held a glass of whiskey. "She ran away. She used her mother's documents." Caleb hadn't become furious. He hadn't shouted nor threatened. He had only smiled, and that was much worse. "Of course she ran," he said, putting the photos back in the envelope. "She's Laura's daughter. I expected nothing less." "Aren't you angry?" "Angry?" Caleb leaned back in his chair. "Richard, you don't understand. I didn't want Emily because you owed me money. I wanted Emily because she's the daughter of the only woman who ever managed to deceive me, the only one who managed to disappear from my radar for almost 20 years. Richard paled. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that Laura never left my system, that I spent all these years looking for her, and when I finally discovered she had died, I thought I would never have the chance to—" He stopped, as if he were revealing more than he intended. "The chance to what?" "To understand, to discover what she had that made me so obsessed." Caleb got up and went to the window. "Laura was the only woman who loved me and left me. All the others loved me and stayed, or hated me and stayed. She loved me and left. That intrigued me for 20 years. "And Emily?" "Emily will help me understand when I find her. And if you can't?" Caleb smiled again. "Richard, I have resources you can't even imagine. I have contacts in 70 countries, informants in every major airport in the world. I have access to technology that can track a person through a satellite photo. If Emily is alive, I'll find her. And when you find her?" "When I find her, I'll discover if she inherited only her mother's beauty or if she also inherited the ability to surprise me." Richard drank the rest of the whiskey in one gulp. "Caleb, please, she's just a girl." "No," Caleb said, still looking out the window. "She's the daughter of the woman who taught me that there are things money can't buy, and I'm going to find out what those things are." 3 months later, Emily was beginning to feel safe. She had made some friends, was earning enough money to live with dignity, and Miami was starting to feel like home. Until one day, arriving home after work, she found the door to her apartment ajar. She stopped in the hallway, her heart racing. She was sure she had locked the door when she left. She always locked it. It was paranoia, but paranoia that had kept her alive. Slowly she pushed the door and entered. Everything was exactly as she had left it, except for one thing. There was a red rose on the kitchen table, a perfect rose, without thorns, with a small card. Emily picked up the card with trembling hands. It was written in English, in an elegant handwriting she didn't recognize. Laura had an apartment similar to this one in Miami. Ocean view, white walls, golden solitude. You inherited her taste for beautiful hideouts. See. Emily let the card fall to the floor and ran to the bedroom. She opened the wardrobe and took out the suitcase she always kept ready. She threw in the essential clothes, documents, money she kept for emergencies. 10 minutes later, she was on the street looking for a taxi. But when she looked back, she saw a man standing on the corner, tall, dark suit looking directly at her. Even at a distance, she recognized him. Caleb. Emily ran. She ran like she had never run in her life, her high heels hitting the asphalt, the heavy suitcase hitting her leg with each step. She heard footsteps behind her but didn't look back. She couldn't look back. She arrived at the airport 2 hours later, in a taxi she had caught 3 blocks away from the apartment. She bought a ticket for the first flight leaving Miami, Chicago. While waiting at the gate, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered without thinking. "You run well," said the familiar voice. Laura ran too, but she always knew that one day I would catch up with her. Emily hung up the phone and threw it in the trash. 2 hours later, she was flying to Chicago, trying not to think about the fact that Caleb had found a way to get her number. Chicago was different from Miami, colder, more difficult, more expensive. Emily got a job as a tour guide for wealthy Brazilians, using her beauty and natural charm to show the city to businessmen who wanted to feel important. It paid well, but it was exhausting. She had to always be smiling, always available, always perfect. It was on one of these tours that she met Marcus Davis, a 45-year-old American businessman who had made a fortune in technology. He was divorced, had 2 children he saw on weekends, and had developed an obsession with Emily from the first day he saw her. Marcus wasn't like the other clients. He didn't try to seduce her with expensive gifts or invitations to dinner at famous restaurants. Instead, he treated her like a real person, asked about her opinion on art, on politics, on life. And Emily, who had spent months feeling invisible, began to enjoy the attention. "Have you ever been married?" he asked one afternoon as they walked through the Art Institute. "No," Emily replied, observing the Mona Lisa. "I never had time." Time. Or courage? Emily looked at him, surprised by the question. "Why do you say that?" "Because you have the look of someone who's been hurt, someone who has learned not to trust." Emily didn't answer, but Marcus continued. "I've been hurt too. My ex-wife cheated on me with my best friend. She took half of what I had and still tried to prevent me from seeing my children." He stopped in front of the painting and looked at her. "But I won't let the past stop me from trying again." "And what are you trying, Marcus?" "I'm trying to get to know you better. I'm trying to discover who the woman is behind those sad eyes." Emily felt something move in her chest. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something like hope. Marcus was kind, was safe, was everything Caleb wasn't. Maybe she could be happy with him. Maybe she could finally stop looking over her shoulder. That night, Emily let Marcus kiss her. It was the first kiss she had given since fleeing New York. And it was gentle, careful, full of promises she desperately wanted to believe. They started dating. Marcus took her to dinner at small, cozy restaurants, to plays, to concerts. He introduced her to friends who treated her with polite cordiality. Emily began to imagine what it would be like to be just a normal woman, with a normal boyfriend, a normal life. But normal things didn't last long in her life. 2 months later, Emily was at Marcus's apartment when he received a call. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard him answer the phone in the living room. "Hello," Marcus said, and then was silent for a long time. "Who are you? How did you get this number?" Emily stopped stirring the sauce and paid attention. "No, I don't know any Emily Collins," Marcus continued, My girlfriend's name is Laura Mendoza. Emily felt her blood freeze. She dropped the spoon and ran to the living room. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus said, but his voice was tense. I don't know what Brazilian woman you're talking about. Emily tried to take the phone from his hand, but Marcus pushed her away with a look. How much? Marcus asked, and Emily felt the world collapse. How much are you offering? Marcus, no, Emily whispered. $100,000. Marcus was looking at her now, his eyes colder than she had ever seen. For information about where she is, Emily ran to the bedroom and started throwing her clothes into the suitcase. She heard Marcus finish the call and come after her. Laura or Emily or whatever your real name is, he said, standing at the door. Who are you? What did you do? Emily turned to him, tears running down her face. I trusted you. And I liked you, I really did. But $100,000 is a lot of money, and you're obviously not who you say you are. You don't understand, Emily said, closing the suitcase. You don't understand what you just did. I understand perfectly. I turned in a fugitive to whoever was looking for her. I'm going to earn enough money to solve all my financial problems. Emily looked at him with contempt. You just sold me as a slave, Marcus. I hope the money is worth it. She left the apartment and ran into the streets of Chicago. It was 9 at night and it was raining. Emily had nowhere to go, no one to call. For the first time since she had fled, she felt completely alone. She found a cheap hotel in Wicker Park and locked herself in the room. She spent the night awake, looking out the window, expecting to see Caleb appear on the street. But he didn't appear. Not that night. The next day, Emily made a decision. She wasn't going to run anymore. She wasn't going to hide anymore. If Caleb wanted her, he would have to come and get her. But she would no longer be a passive victim. She went to an electronics store and bought a new cell phone. Then she went to a cafe with Wi-Fi and created a new email account. She wrote a short message. Caleb, stop using other people to find me. If you want me, come yourself. I'm in Chicago at the Hotel de Grand Boulevards, room 237, but come alone. If I see one of your thugs, I'll disappear again, and this time you'll never find me. Emily. She sent the message to the email address she found on his company's website. Then she went back to the hotel and waited. She didn't have to wait long. 2 hours later, someone knocked on the door. Emily opened it without asking who it was. She knew who it was. Caleb was standing in the hallway, taller than she remembered, more imposing. He wore a dark grey suit and a black overcoat. He had a briefcase in his hand and a look she couldn't decipher. You look different, he said, entering the room without being invited. You too, Emily replied, closing the door. Caleb put the briefcase on the floor and looked at her. 2.5 years. You made me chase you for 2.5 years. You didn't give up. I never give up. Emily crossed her arms. What do you want from me, Caleb? I want to understand, he said, taking off his overcoat and placing it on the chair. I want to understand what your mother had that made me so obsessed. I want to understand why, 20 years later, I still dream of her. My mother is dead. I know, but you're not. Caleb came closer to her, and Emily smelled his cologne, expensive and masculine. You have her eyes, the same way of lifting your chin when you're challenging someone, the same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. I'm not her. No. You're stronger than her. Laura would never have sent me an email challenging me. Laura would never have waited in a hotel. Emily took a step back, but Caleb didn't follow her. He just stood there looking at her as if she were a painting in a museum. You're afraid of me, he said. Should I be? That depends on what you think I'm going to do with you. Emily stared at him. You're not going to hurt me. No? No. Because if you wanted to hurt me, you would have done it already. You had 2 opportunities, and both times you let me escape. Caleb smiled, and for the first time Emily saw that it wasn't a cold smile. It was almost proud. You are smarter than your mother, he said. So what do you want? Caleb opened the briefcase and took out some papers. I want to make a deal with you. Emily looked at the papers, but didn't take them. What kind of deal? You come work for me. Officially. Legitimately. You have knowledge about art. Speak. Several languages are intelligent. I have a gallery in Boston that needs a curator. And unofficially? Unofficially, you help me understand what your mother meant to me, and I help you understand who you really are. Emily laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You think I don't know who I am? I think you've spent the last 2.5 years hiding. I think you have no idea what you're capable of. I think you're much more than a scared girl. Running from a powerful man. Emily was silent for a long moment. And if I say no? Then you say no, and I'll leave, and you'll never see me again. That's simple. That's simple. Emily looked him in the eyes, searching for lies, for traps. But what she saw was something she didn't expect: vulnerability. Caleb Morrison, the man who had terrorized her dreams for 2.5 years, was vulnerable. Why? She asked. Because, he said, putting the papers back in the briefcase, I'm tired of living haunted by ghosts, and you're the only person who can help me bury them. Emily looked out the window. Chicago stretched out before her, full of possibilities and traps. She could say no, she could continue running. She could try to build a normal life somewhere Caleb would never find her. But she was tired of running, tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of hiding. Boston, she said. Boston. And if I don't like the job, you can leave any time. Emily turned to him. You're lying. Probably, Caleb smiled again, but you'll accept anyway. Emily knew he was right. She knew she was walking into a trap, but she also knew she couldn't spend the rest of her life running. When do we leave? She asked. Tomorrow, Caleb replied, picking up the overcoat. I'll pick you up at 9. He went to the door, then stopped and turned. Emily. Yes? Welcome back to my life. And then he left, leaving Emily alone with the certainty that she had just made the most dangerous decision of her life, or perhaps the smartest. Only time would tell. Boston in winter was a city of golden palaces, covered in snow, and cafes that smelled of cinnamon and ancient promises. Emily arrived in a frigid December, when the sun barely appeared and the streets were deserted before 6 in the evening. Caleb was waiting for her at the airport with a silent driver and a black Mercedes that took her straight to the historic center. The apartment he had arranged for her was in Beacon Hill, a few blocks from the Boston Opera House. It was small, but elegant, with tall windows that looked out onto a cobblestone street where tourists rarely ventured. Emily was surprised to discover that the apartment was fully furnished with impeccable taste. Antique furniture, artwork on the walls, a library filled with books in English, Spanish, and French. How did you know I would like this? She asked, as Caleb watched her explore the space. Your mother had similar tastes, he answered, placing the keys on the table. She always said that homes should tell stories, not just shelter people. Emily stopped walking and looked at him. You're always doing that. Doing what? Comparing me to her, talking about her as if she were still alive, as if you still what? Emily hesitated, as if you still loved her. Caleb was silent for a long moment, his hands in his pockets, looking out the window at the busy street below. I don't know if what I felt for Laura was love, he finally said. I know it was obsession. I know it was a hunger that I could never satisfy. I know that when she left, something inside me broke and never mended. And you think I can fix it? Caleb turned to her, and Emily saw something in his eyes that made her take a step back. It wasn't anger, it wasn't lust. It was a raw vulnerability that frightened her more than any threat. I think, he said slowly, that you're the only person who can help me understand why she never left my mind. Why, 20 years later, I still wake up some days thinking she's beside me. Emily felt a shiver down her spine. Caleb, this isn't healthy. I know. He approached her, stopping only when he was close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. That's why you're here. Emily wanted to back away, but there was nowhere to go. She was against the wall, and Caleb was so close that she could see the golden threads in his brown eyes. The gallery is 10 minutes from here, he said, his voice low. You start tomorrow. There's an exhibition being set up on Soviet art. I thought you might like it. Why? Because it's about people who lived double lives, who created false identities to survive, who learned to hide behind masks. Caleb touched her face lightly, just a brush of his fingers on her jaw. You must understand that well. Emily held her breath. His touch was gentle, but there was something behind it that made her want to run and stay at the same time. I don't wear masks, she said. No? Caleb smiled. Then tell me, Emily, who are you really? The obedient daughter who grew up on the Upper East Side, the fugitive who ran around the world, the woman who hid behind the identity of her dead mother, or someone completely different? Emily pushed him away. You don't know me? Not yet, he agreed, but I will. The next day, Emily discovered that Caleb's gallery was much more than she had imagined. It occupied 3 floors of a historic building in downtown Boston, with spacious rooms, perfect lighting, and a collection that left her speechless. There were works by Klimt, Schiele, Picasso, Monet, pieces that should have been in museums, not in a private gallery. The assistant who received her was an American woman of about 30 named Alice, who spoke perfect English and seemed to know more about art than Emily would ever know. Mr. Morrison said you would be responsible for the exhibition on Soviet art, Alice explained as she led her to the 3rd floor. The works arrived last week directly from Moscow. Some have never been publicly exhibited. Emily stopped in front of a painting that took her breath away. It was a portrait of a young woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to follow whoever looked at it. The technique was impeccable, but there was something in the model's expression that was disturbing. Sadness mixed with defiance, vulnerability hidden behind strength. Who is she? Emily asked. We don't know, Alice replied. The work is by an artist named Andrei Petrov, who died in the 80s. He never revealed who his models were. He said he painted women who carried secrets. Emily stared at the painting for a long time. There was something familiar in the woman's face, something she couldn't identify. Mr. Morrison asked for this work to be in the main room, Alice continued. He said it was special. Special how? I don't know. He just said this painting was the reason he decided to do the exhibition. Emily spent the rest of the day organizing the works, creating a visual narrative that told the story of Soviet art not just as propaganda, but as resistance. They were paintings done in secret, sculptures made never to be seen, photographs that captured forbidden moments. When she was about to leave, Caleb appeared. How was your first day? He asked, walking among the already positioned works. Interesting, Emily replied. You have an impressive collection. Some pieces I've had for a long time, others are more recent. He stopped in front of the portrait of the unknown woman. This one, for example, I bought just 2 months ago. Why? Because when I saw it, I thought of someone. Emily knew he was referring to her mother, but she said nothing. You know, Caleb continued, Laura posed for some artists when she was young, before we met. She never told me that. She didn't talk much about the past. She said some memories were better left buried. Caleb touched the frame of the painting, but I always wanted to see those paintings. I always wanted to know how other men saw her. Emily felt a strange discomfort. You were jealous of paintings. I was jealous of everything that touched her, Caleb said, turning to her. I was jealous of the air she breathed, the water she drank, the sun that warmed her skin. That's not love, Caleb. That's obsession. I know. He came closer to her again. You think I don't know the difference? You think I haven't tried to? Forget her 1,000 times? Emily saw the genuine pain in his eyes and felt something move in her chest. It wasn't pity. It wasn't fear. It was something more dangerous, understanding. Why did you never try to find her when she ran away? Emily asked. Who said I didn't try? Emily looked at him surprised. You tried. I looked for her for 2 years. I hired the best investigators, offered fortunes for information, but she had completely disappeared. Caleb leaned against the wall, suddenly looking older. I only discovered she had died 5 years later, when I saw the obituary in a New York newspaper. And then you went after my father. Not immediately. First, I had to process the fact that she had died, that I would never see her again. Then I had to figure out how to move on. Caleb laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. I discovered I couldn't. Emily was silent, absorbing his words. Laura told me about you, Caleb said suddenly. Once, when we were together, she mentioned that she had met a man in New York. She said he was different from the others, that he made her feel things she had never felt before. She talked about my father. She talked about being in love. For the first time in her life, she was truly in love, and that terrified me. Emily frowned. Why? Because I knew I was losing her. I knew that someday she would choose him instead. Serve me, I knew I wasn't enough to keep her. So why didn't you let her go? Because I was young, I was stupid, and I thought that if she stayed with me long enough, eventually she would love me as much as I loved her. Caleb looked at Emily. I was wrong. Emily felt a pang of sadness for her mother. She loved you. Caleb, she just loved my father more. I know. Caleb came closer to her again. And now I want to know if you're capable of loving someone more than yourself. Emily backed away. I'm not her. No. You're stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Caleb touched her face again, this time leaving his hand there. You're everything she could have been if she had been born in a different time. Emily wanted to move away but couldn't. His touch was warm and there was something in his eyes that made her want to discover what would happen if she stayed. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. I want to know if you can love me, Caleb said, his voice equally low. Or if you'll leave me like she did. Emily held her breath. And if I say I can't, then at least I'll know. At least I won't spend the rest of my life wondering. Emily pushed him away. You're crazy. Probably, Caleb smiled. But you're here, aren't you? You could have said no in Chicago. You could have continued running. But you're here. Emily had no answer for that. Because he was right. She could have said no. She could have continued running. But something had brought her. Here, something she couldn't name. I need to go, she said. Of course, Caleb stepped back. But Emily. Yes. Thank you for staying. Emily left the gallery with her heart beating fast. She walked the streets of Boston trying to understand what had happened. Caleb hadn't tried to force her into anything, hadn't made threats. On the contrary, he had been vulnerable, had shown himself as she had never seen before. And that scared her more than anything he could have done. In the following days, Emily focused on work. The exhibition was taking shape, and she discovered she had a natural talent for curation. She could see connections between works that other people didn't see, could create visual narratives that told complex stories. Caleb appeared at the gallery every day but kept his distance. He observed Emily working, sometimes made suggestions but never tried to control her. It was as if he were waiting for her to take the initiative. It was during the third week that Emily found the letters. She was organizing the gallery's archives when she discovered a folder marked with Laura's name. Inside were dozens of letters, all handwritten, all signed by Caleb. Emily knew she shouldn't read them but couldn't resist. She opened the first letter. Laura, it's been 3 days since you left, and I'm already going crazy. I know you said you needed time to think, but I can't think about anything but you. You're like a drug in my blood. I need you to breathe. Emily opened another letter. Today I dreamed you came back. You were wearing that red dress you wore the first night we spent together. You told me you loved me, that you would never leave. Me again. I woke up and for a moment thought it was real. The disappointment almost killed me. And another. Laura, I know you're with him. I know you're happy. I should be happy for you, but I can't. I can't accept that you chose him instead of me. I can't accept that I'm not enough. Emily read letter after letter, each more desperate than the last. They were the words of a completely obsessed man, of someone who had lost all perspective. Finally, last letter was different. Laura, I received the news that you died. I can't believe it. I can't accept that you're gone forever. I should have fought for you. I should have gone after you. I should have convinced you to stay. Now it's too late. Now all I have left are memories and regrets. I love you. I will always love you, Caleb. Emily closed the folder with trembling hands. Now she understood Caleb's obsession. He had loved her mother with an intensity that bordered on madness. And now he was transferring that obsession to her. You shouldn't have read that, said a voice behind her. Emily turned and saw Caleb standing in the doorway of the archive. He didn't look angry, just tired. Why did you keep the letters? She asked. Because they're all I have of her. Caleb entered the archive and took the folder. I wrote them, but never sent them. I didn't know where she was. Caleb, this isn't normal. I know it's not normal. He sat down in the chair next to the desk. You think I don't know I'm obsessed, that I'm sick, that I can't let go of the past? Emily sat down too. Then why don't you seek help? Because I don't want to forget her. I want to understand why she marked me so much. I want to understand why, even after she's dead, she still controls my life. And you think I can help you with that? Caleb looked at her. You're the only person who can. You're her daughter. You carry part of her in you. But I'm not her. No, you're better than her. Caleb leaned forward. Laura was beautiful, was intelligent, was seductive, but she was weak. She ran from problems instead of facing them. You don't. You're strong. You fight. Emily was silent, processing his words. You want to know the truth, Caleb continued. I'm not obsessed with you because you remind me of her. I'm obsessed with you because you're everything she could have been if she had had courage. Emily felt something move in her chest. Caleb, I know you feel something for me, he said. I see it in the way you look at me. I see it in the way you can't stay away from me, even knowing you should. Emily wanted to deny it, but couldn't, because he was right. There was something between them, something she couldn't name or control. I'm afraid, she admitted. Afraid of what? Afraid of losing myself, afraid of becoming like her, afraid of being just another woman you'll obsess over. Caleb stood up and went to her. He extended his hand, and Emily hesitated before taking it. He pulled her close, but didn't kiss her. He just hugged her. Emily, he whispered in her ear, you will never be just another woman to me. You're the woman who can save me or completely destroy me, and I'm willing to take that risk. Emily closed her eyes and allowed herself to relax in his arms. For a moment she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to completely surrender to him. Would it be wonderful or catastrophic? Probably both. I need time, she said. How much time? I don't know. Maybe a lot. Caleb released her and looked her in the eyes. I have patience. I would wait a lifetime if necessary. And if I decide I can't do this, then I'll accept it, and you'll be free to leave. Emily looked at him, searching for lies, for traps. But all she saw was sincerity and a vulnerability that made her want to protect him and run from him at the same time. Very well, she said, but with conditions. What conditions? No pressure, no games, no trying to control me. Emily stepped away from him. If this is going to happen, it will happen in my time, in my way. Caleb smiled. I agree. And you'll tell me everything about my mother. Everything. I don't want any more secrets. Everything. Emily nodded. Then let's see where this takes. Us? Caleb extended his hand again. Partners. Emily looked at his hand, knowing that if she took it, she would be sealing a deal that would change her life forever. But also knowing she had no choice. There was something between them that needed to be explored, even if it meant risking losing herself in the process. She took his hand. Partners, she said. And at that moment, Emily knew she had just taken the most dangerous step of her life, but also the most necessary, because some things could only be understood by living them, and Caleb Morrison was one of those things. Night fell over Boston, and Emily walked back to her apartment with a heart full of doubts and possibilities. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew it wouldn't be boring. and for the first time in years she was eager to discover who she really was when she wasn't running. The answer, she suspected, would be more complex than anything she could imagine. The rain was beating against the gallery windows when Emily arrived the next morning, finding Caleb sitting at her desk, leafing through an album of old photographs. He looked up when she entered, and Emily saw something different in his eyes, a determination that wasn't there the day before. "You said you wanted to know everything about your mother," he said, closing the album. "So let's start." Emily took off her wet coat and approached. Now, because if I don't start now, I may never have the courage to tell." Caleb stood up and went to a wall where there was a painting covered by a cloth. "This is the first thing you need to see." He pulled the cloth, revealing a painting that took Emily's breath away. It was her mother, but a version of her that Emily had never seen. Laura was nude from the waist up, her loose hair falling over her shoulders, her eyes fixed on the observer with an intensity that was almost palpable. It wasn't pornographic, it was art, but there was a raw sensuality in the image that made Emily blush. "Who painted this?" Emily asked, her voice almost a whisper. "I did." Caleb stood beside her, looking at the painting. "I painted your mother dozens of times. She was my model, my muse, my obsession." Emily looked at him surprised. "You paint?" "I used to. I stopped. After she died." Caleb touched the frame of the painting. "She posed for me every night. She said she liked the way I looked at her when I was painting. She said I truly saw her." Emily kept looking at the painting, trying to process this new information. "Do you have more?" "I do." Caleb went to a cabinet and took out a folder. "But some are too intimate." Emily took the folder and opened it. Inside were dozens of drawings and paintings of Laura in different poses, different moments. Some were formal portraits, others were quick sketches that captured everyday moments. All were done with impressive technical skill, but more than that, all were done with love. "You're very talented," Emily said, leafing through the drawings. "Why did you stop?" "Because after she died, I couldn't see beauty in anything anymore. I couldn't create anymore. Everything I did reminded me of her." Caleb sat in the chair next to the desk. "You're the first person who makes me want to paint again." Emily looked up from the drawings. "You want to paint me?" "I do, but not yet. I'm not ready yet." Emily continued leafing through the drawings until she stopped at a specific one. It was Laura pregnant, her hand on her rounded belly, a soft smile on her lips. "She was pregnant?" Emily asked. Caleb tensed. "Yes, once." "What happened?" "She lost the baby. In the 4th month." Caleb got up and went to the window. "It was after that she started talking about leaving. She said she wanted a normal life, a normal family." Emily felt a pang of sadness. "Did you want the baby?" "I wanted everything she wanted. If she wanted a baby, I wanted to give her a baby. If she wanted a beach house, I would buy her a beach house. If she wanted the moon, I would find a way to take it from the sky. But she didn't want you." Caleb turned and Emily saw genuine pain in his eyes. "She wanted me. She just wanted other things too. Things I couldn't give." "Like what?" "Normality, stability, a man who wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night to make sure she was still there, a man who wouldn't be capable of killing for her." Caleb came back to Emily. "I was too intense for her, too possessive, too dangerous." Emily closed the folder of drawings. "And you think I'm different?" "You are different. You're not afraid of intensity. You don't back away when things get complicated." Caleb leaned forward. "Your mother ran from problems. You face them head on." "Maybe because I had to learn to survive on my own. Maybe. Or maybe because you're stronger than her from birth." Emily stood up and went to Laura's painting. "You said you would tell me everything. Tell me how you met." Caleb hesitated. "Are you sure you want to know?" "I am." "All right." Caleb settled into the chair. "I met her at a party in Miami. She was dancing and I was hypnotized. I had never seen anyone move like she did. It was as if the music came out of her body." Emily sat down too, preparing to hear the full story. She was with another man that night, Caleb continued. An older businessman who treated her like a trophy. I asked her to dance just once, and I knew I wouldn't be able to forget her. And then? Then I did what I always do when I want something. I won her over. Caleb smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. I sent her flowers every day for a month. I showed up everywhere she went. I offered her everything she could want. You stalked her. I courted her, intensely. Caleb leaned forward. And it worked. She left the other man and came to live with me. Emily frowned. That doesn't sound like the mom I knew. Because the woman you knew had changed. Having a daughter changed her. Loving your father changed her. Caleb looked at the painting. The Laura I knew was wild, impulsive, addicted to strong emotions. She liked the intensity, liked the danger. What kind of danger? Caleb hesitated again. Emily, some parts of the story are dark. Tell me. Laura wasn't just a dancer, she worked for me in other ways too. Emily felt a chill in her stomach. What other ways? She helped me with business that wasn't exactly legal. Caleb stood up and began walking around the room. She was intelligent, seductive, capable of making powerful men reveal secrets without even realizing it. She was a spy. She was many things, spy, negotiator, sometimes other things. Caleb stopped walking and looked at Emily. I didn't force her to do anything. She liked the work, liked the adrenaline. Emily felt nausea. Are you saying my mother was a prostitute? No, never. She never slept with anyone for money, but she did use her sexuality as a tool, yes, and she was very good at it. Emily stood up abruptly. I don't want to hear any more of this. Emily, you asked for the truth. I asked to know about my mother, not about a stranger who used sex to make money. Caleb approached her. Your mother was a complex woman. She had light and shadow like everyone. She wasn't a saint, but she wasn't a villain either. She was a criminal. She was a survivor. Caleb touched Emily's arm. Just like you. Emily moved away from him. I've never done anything like that. No? Didn't you use your beauty to get work at the gallery in Miami? Didn't you seduce Marcus to get protection? Didn't you use your mother's identity to flee the country? Emily looked at him angrily. That's different. Is it? Or is it just a more subtle version of the same thing? Emily wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to run away. But she didn't do any of those things, because deep down, she knew he was right. She had used all available resources to survive, including her appearance and charm. Laura regretted it, Caleb said more softly. In the last month she stayed with me, she talked about wanting a different life, about wanting to be a better person. And you let her go? I tried to keep her. Tried to convince her to stay. Threatened, begged, promised to change. Caleb sat heavily in the chair, but she had already made her decision. She had already chosen your father. Emily was silent, processing everything she had heard. The mother she had known had been gentle, caring, present, but that mother had existed for only a few years. Before that, she had been a completely different woman. Do you think she loved me? Emily asked. I think she loved the person you made her be. I think having a daughter gave her a purpose she had never had before. Caleb looked at Emily. She talked about you constantly, said you were her chance at redemption. Emily felt tears in her eyes. I barely remember her. You were very young when she died, but she left marks on you. Your strength, your determination, your refusal to be a victim, all that came from her. And from you too, Emily said without thinking. Caleb looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? You said she was impulsive, that she liked strong emotions, that she was addicted to adrenaline. I'm like that too. I also like risks, challenges. Emily came closer to him. Maybe I inherited that from her, or maybe I inherited it from you. Emily. You said she posed for you, that she liked the way you looked at her. Emily stopped in front of him. I also like the way you look at me. Caleb got up slowly. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. I know exactly what I'm saying. Emily came closer. I know you want me. I know you think about me when you're alone. I know you imagine me in her place. Emily, stop. Why? Why are you afraid? To admit it's not just obsession with my mother. Why are you afraid to admit you want me for who I am, not for who I look like? Caleb held her by the shoulders. Because if I admit that, if I let that happen, I could destroy you. Just like I destroyed her. You didn't destroy my mother. She chose to leave your life. She chose my father. She had no choice. I suffocated her. I possessed her. I consumed her. Caleb pulled her closer. I can't love without destroying. I can't want without completely possessing. Emily put her hands on his chest. Then don't love me, just desire me. Emily, just desire me, she repeated, raising her hands to his neck. Just for tonight. Just to see what it's like. Caleb remained motionless for a moment, fighting against himself. Then slowly, he put his hands on her face. If I kiss you, he said, his voice hoarse, I won't be able to stop. Then don't stop, Emily whispered. Caleb kissed her with a hunger she had never felt before. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't careful. It was desperate, possessive, as if he were trying to devour her. Emily responded with the same intensity, her hands tangling in his hair, her body pressing against his. When they separated, both were breathless. This is madness, Caleb said, but he didn't let her go. It is, Emily agreed. But I don't care. Caleb looked into her eyes. You know that if we do this, there's no going back? I know. You know I won't be able to let you go. I know. You know I might hurt you. Emily smiled. You can try. Caleb laughed, despite himself. You're impossible. I learned from the best. Caleb kissed her again, this time more slowly, more deliberately. Emily felt something ignite inside her, something she had never felt before. It was desire. It was hunger. It was a need that seemed to come from a deep, primitive place. When they separated again, Emily saw that there was something different in Caleb's eyes. The vulnerability was still there, but there was something more. Possessiveness, determination, a silent promise that she now belonged to him. Let's go home, he said. My home or your home? My home. Caleb ran his thumb across her lips. I want to have you in my bed, surrounded by my things, completely mine. Emily should have been frightened by the possessiveness in his voice. She should have backed away, should have said she was changing her mind. But all she felt was an excitement that made her tremble. Then take me home, she said. Caleb's apartment was in a historic building near downtown, with high ceilings and windows overlooking the Charles River. It was elegant but masculine, with dark leather furniture and artwork on the walls. Emily recognized some of the paintings he had made of Laura. You still have all of them? She asked. All of them. I can't get rid of them. Caleb poured 2 glasses of wine. Now, do you understand why I said I'm obsessive? Emily took the glass of wine and observed him. Are you afraid to paint me because you think you might become obsessive about me too? I'm already obsessive about you. Caleb took a sip of the wine. The question is whether you can handle it. Maybe I don't want to handle it. Maybe I want to lose myself in it. Caleb put the glass on the table and came closer to her. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Emily put her glass down too and turned to him. I've spent my whole life being careful, being controlled, being sensible. I'm tired of it. Emily? No. Emily put her finger on his lips. Don't tell me it's dangerous. Don't tell me you might hurt me. Don't tell me it's a bad idea. She came closer. Show me. Caleb held her wrist. If I show you, you might not like what you see. Or I might like it more than I should. Caleb looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he pulled her hand away from his lips and kissed her. This time there was no hesitation. This time he kissed her as if she were already his, as if he had every right to her. Emily surrendered completely to the kiss, letting him consume her. She felt his hands in her hair, on her waist, on her back. She felt his body against hers, solid and warm and completely masculine. When he lifted her in his arms, Emily didn't protest. When he carried her to the bedroom, she didn't pull back. When he placed her on the bed and looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, she didn't hide. "Are you sure?" he asked one last time. "I'm sure," Emily replied, pulling him down. And then there were no more words, only sensations. His hands exploring every inch of her body, his mouth leaving marks that she knew she would carry forever. Emily lost herself, in his warmth, in his intensity, in the way he made her feel as if she were the only woman in the world. When they finally joined, Emily understood why her mother had become addicted to him. Caleb didn't make love, he possessed. He wasn't gentle, he was consuming. He wasn't careful, he was devastating. And Emily loved every second of it. Afterward, when they were lying together, Emily traced scars on his chest that she hadn't noticed before. "Where did these come from?" she asked. "Business," Caleb replied, pulling her closer. "My life hasn't exactly been peaceful." "Have you ever killed someone?" Caleb tensed. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I want to know who I'm getting involved with." Caleb was silent for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said, "I have." Emily should have been frightened. She should have moved away, should have run. But all she felt was a strange excitement. Why? Because they threatened people I love, because they tried to take what was mine, because they thought they could use me and then discard me. Caleb turned to her, his eyes serious. "I'm not a good man, Emily. I'm dangerous, I'm possessive, and I'm capable of doing terrible things for those I love." Emily kissed the nearest scar. "Do you love me?" "I think so, or I think I'm starting to love." Caleb ran his fingers through her hair. "Does that scare you?" "Should it?" "It should." Caleb pulled her on top of him. "But you don't seem scared." "I'm not." Emily positioned herself over him, her hair falling like a curtain around their faces. "I'm excited." Caleb smiled. "You are your mother's daughter." "No," Emily said, moving against him. "I'm better than her. I'm stronger, smarter, more dangerous." She leaned down and whispered in his ear, "And I won't run away." Caleb held her by the hips. "Promise?" "I promise." "Even if things get difficult?" "Especially if things get difficult." Caleb turned her, putting her underneath him again. "Then you're mine now." "I'm yours now," Emily confirmed. And when he kissed her again, she knew she had just sealed a deal that would change her life forever. She didn't know if it would be for better or worse, but she knew she didn't regret it, because for the first time in her life, Emily Collins was exactly where she wanted to be. The next morning, Emily woke up alone. She found a note on the bedside. "Table, had to resolve some urgent business. Back tonight. You're beautiful when you sleep. C." Emily smiled and stretched in the bed. She felt different, as if something inside her had been awakened. It wasn't just the sex, although that had been incredible. It was the fact that she had finally allowed herself to be who she really was. She showered in Caleb's luxurious bathroom, used one of his shirts for breakfast, and then returned to her apartment to change. She felt as if she were walking on clouds. But when she arrived at the gallery, she found Alice waiting for her with a worried expression. "Emily," she said, "there's someone here to see you." Emily frowned. "Who?" "He said he's your father." Emily felt her blood freeze. Richard was there, standing at the entrance to the gallery, looking older and more fragile than she remembered. "Hi, daughter," he said when he saw her. "Dad." Emily approached cautiously. "What are you doing here?" "I came to get you." "Get me?" "I came to bring you home. I came to get you away from him." Richard looked around the gallery. "He found you, didn't he? Caleb found you." Emily didn't answer, but her expression must have given everything away. "My God," Richard said, "you're sleeping with him, aren't you? That's none of your business." "None of my business? You're my daughter. You don't know what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of, Emily said coldly, and I don't care. Richard looked at her as if she were a stranger. He's brainwashed you. He's manipulated you, like he did with your mother. He didn't manipulate me. I chose to be here. You don't understand. Caleb is dangerous. He's obsessive. He'll destroy you like he destroyed her. Emily felt anger growing inside her. He didn't destroy my mother. You destroyed my mother. Richard backed away as if he had been slapped. What are you talking about? I'm talking about how you took her from a life she understood to put her in a life she hated. I'm talking about how you forced her to be someone she wasn't. Emily came closer to him. I'm talking about how you killed her slowly, day after day, until she couldn't take it anymore. Your mother died in a car accident. My mother died because she was trying to go back to him. She was on her way to meet Caleb when she crashed the car. She was running away from you. Richard paled. How do you know that? Because I'm not an innocent child anymore. Because I grew up, because I discovered the truth. Emily crossed her arms. And now I want you to leave. Emily, please come home with me. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out. My home is here now. With him? With him. Richard looked at her for a long moment. You're making a terrible mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Richard nodded slowly. I love you, Emily. I always have. I know I made mistakes. I know I wasn't a good father. But I love you. I know, Emily said, her voice softer. But love isn't enough. It never was. Richard turned to leave, then stopped. When he gets tired of you, when he finds the next obsession, don't come looking for me. I won't be there. I won't need you, Emily replied. And when Richard left, Emily knew she had just burned another bridge, but she didn't care. For the first time in her life, she was building something that was entirely her own, even if it meant destroying everything that came before. The game had changed, and Emily was ready to play. 3 weeks after Richard's visit, Emily was beginning to understand what it meant to be loved by Caleb Morrison. He didn't just love her, he studied her, observed every movement, every expression, every mood change. It was like living under a microscope made of gold and obsidian. Emily woke every morning with fresh flowers on the bedside table. Not cliché red roses, but rare orchids, white lilies, fragrant gardenias. Caleb somehow discovered what her favorite flower was each day and made sure it was there when she opened her eyes. How do you always know? She asked one morning, finding purple tulips next to a cup of coffee that was still hot. I observe, Caleb replied, coming out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist. Yesterday you stopped to smell purple tulips at the florist on the corner. You looked at them for almost 2 minutes. Do you follow me? I make sure you're safe. Caleb came closer to her and kissed the top of her head. There's a difference. Emily should have been bothered by the control, by the constant surveillance. But the truth was that she felt protected, cared for in a way she had never experienced before. Caleb didn't just want her, he worshipped her. At the gallery, Emily had become indispensable. The exhibition on Soviet art was almost ready, and she had created something that was both educational and emotionally powerful. The important visitors from all over Europe were confirming their presence for the opening. You have a natural talent for this, Alice commented, as she helped Emily position the last sculpture. You can make people feel the history, not just see it. Emily smiled, adjusting the lighting. Maybe it's because I understand what it's like to live a double life, what it's like to hide who you really are. And who are you really? Emily stopped working and looked at Alice. I'm still figuring that out. It was that afternoon that everything began to crumble. Emily was in her office organizing the final details of the exhibition when Caleb entered with an expression she had never seen before. It wasn't anger, it wasn't concern. It was something much more dangerous, fear. We have a problem, he said, closing the door behind him. What kind of problem? Caleb placed an envelope on her desk. Open it. Emily took the envelope and removed a photo from inside. It was a photo of her leaving Caleb's apartment in the morning, taken with a telephoto lens from somewhere distant. There were other photos. Her and Caleb having dinner, Her working at the gallery, her walking the streets of Boston. "Who took these photos?" Emily asked, feeling a chill down her spine. "Someone who shouldn't know where you are." Caleb sat in the chair in front of the desk. "Someone who has an interest in finding you." Emily turned over one of the photos and saw something written on the back. "She's even more beautiful than her mother. It would be a shame if something happened to her." "Caleb, who wrote this?" "Victor Taylor, one of my former Russian partners." Caleb took another paper from his pocket. "He arrived in Boston yesterday. He's staying at the Ritz-Carlton." Emily felt nausea. "What does he want?" "He wants you." Laura was supposed to have been delivered to him 20 years ago as part of a deal that wasn't fulfilled. Now he wants to collect the debt through you. "What deal?" Caleb hesitated. "Emily, there are things about the past that I haven't told you, things I hoped I would never have to tell." "Tell me now." "When I met your mother, I wasn't just in love. I was desperate. My businesses were in crisis. I owed a lot of money to very dangerous people." Caleb stood up and went to the window. "Victor was one of them. He lent me money, but he wanted unconventional guarantees." Emily felt her blood freeze. "What guarantees?" "Laura. He wanted Laura as payment if I couldn't pay the debt." Caleb turned to her. "I agreed, because I thought I could pay before he came to collect." "You bet my mother?" "I was young, I was desperate, and I was completely in love. I would have done anything to keep Laura with me, including making stupid deals." Caleb came closer to her. "But I managed to pay the debt. I managed to pay everything before he showed up." "So why is he after me now?" "Because there's a clause in the original contract that I didn't understand at the time. If Laura had children, they would also be part of the deal." Caleb stopped in front of the desk. "Victor has legal rights over you, Emily, at least in the world where we live." Emily stood up abruptly. "I'm not property. I'm not something that can be traded or sold." "I know, but Victor doesn't see things that way. For him, you're an investment he's waited 20 years to receive." Emily began pacing the room. "So what do? We run. Today, now." Caleb went to her. "I have an apartment in Providence that Victor doesn't know about. We can stay there until I can resolve this." "Resolve how?" "It doesn't matter how. I'll resolve it." Emily stopped pacing and looked at him. "You're going to kill him?" "If necessary." "Caleb, you can't keep killing people to solve your problems." "I can and will do whatever is necessary to protect you." Caleb held her shoulders. "Victor isn't just dangerous, Emily. He's sadistic. He likes to hurt people, especially beautiful women." Emily saw the sincerity in his eyes and felt fear for the first time since she had arrived in Boston. "All right, we'll run. Now. Let's get your things and leave the city today." Emily nodded. But when they were leaving the gallery, Alice intercepted them. "Emily," she said, looking worried, "there's a man here asking for you. He said he's an old family friend." Caleb tensed. "What man?" "He's at the reception. He said his name is Victor." Caleb cursed in a language Emily didn't recognize. "Emily, leave through the back entrance. Go to your apartment, take only the essentials, and meet me at my car in 20 minutes. "And you?" "I'll talk to Victor. I'll try to buy time." Emily hesitated. "Caleb, be careful." "I always am." He kissed her forehead. "Now go." Emily left through the back and ran to her apartment, her heart beating wildly. She threw some clothes in a suitcase, took her passport and the money she always kept hidden, for emergencies. When she was about to leave, she heard a knock at the door. "Emily," a voice said in English with a Russian accent, "I know you're in there. I can smell your perfume." Emily hid behind the bedroom door, trying to control her. Breathing, the voice continued. "You don't need to be afraid, dear. I'm not going to hurt you, not yet." He laughed, and the sound made Emily shiver. "Your boyfriend is a little busy at the moment. I hope he survives our conversation." Emily felt panic. Caleb was in danger, and she was hiding like a frightened child. "You know," the voice continued, "your mother tried to hide from me too. It didn't work out very well for her." Emily frowned. "What did he mean by that?" "Oh, Caleb didn't tell you. How interesting." Victor seemed to be enjoying himself. Your mother didn't die in a car accident, dear. She died because she tried to run from me. Emily felt the world spin. You're lying, she said too loudly. Ah, so you are there. Good. Victor knocked on the door again. Open the door, Emily. Let's talk like civilized adults. I'm not going to open anything. No? What a shame. Because I have some photos here that you'd like to see. Photos of your mother. Photos of how she was when I found her. Emily approached the door. You killed her? I punished her. She had a debt to me, just as you do now. Victor laughed again. She was beautiful, just like you, but she wasn't very cooperative. I hope you're smarter. Emily felt anger burning in her veins. You son of a bitch. Language, dear. Your mother also had a dirty mouth. I had to teach her good manners. Emily couldn't listen anymore. She flung the door open and found Victor standing in the hallway. He was older than she expected, with grey hair and scars on his face, but his eyes were young and cruel. Ah, much better, he said, smiling. You're even more beautiful up close. You killed my mother, Emily said, her voice trembling with anger. I fulfilled a contract. Your mother should have been delivered to me 20 years ago. When she ran away, I had to go get her. Victor stepped forward. She fought quite a bit. I hope you'll be more cooperative. Emily saw a scar on his hand and recognized the shape. You have a wedding ring. You're married. I have a beautiful wife in Moscow. She understands that I have special needs. Victor smiled. You'll understand too, eventually. Emily backed into the apartment, but Victor followed her. Where is Caleb? Caleb is learning that one shouldn't interfere in other people's business. Victor closed the door behind him. Now let's talk about you. Emily ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. Don't come near me. Ah, you have spirit. Your mother had it too in the beginning. Victor took a pistol from his jacket. But she learned to behave. You will too. Emily held the knife tightly. I'll kill you. No, dear. You won't. Victor pointed the gun at her. You're going to put the knife on the floor and come with me. Or I'll kill Caleb slowly while you watch. Emily hesitated. You're bluffing. Victor took a phone from his pocket and showed a photo on the screen. It was Caleb, tied to a chair, bleeding from his mouth. Bluffing? Victor smiled. My men are with him now. One word from me and they start cutting off fingers. Emily lowered the knife. What do you want? I want you to come with me, peacefully, without resistance. Victor put the phone away, and in return, Caleb lives. For how long? That depends on how cooperative you are. Emily looked at the knife in her hands. She could try to attack Victor, but he had a gun. She could try to run, but he had Caleb. There was no choice. All right, she said, putting the knife on the floor. I'll go with you. How intelligent, Victor smiled. Your mother made the same choice in the end. Emily approached him, but when she was close enough, she did something Victor didn't expect. She smiled. You made a mistake, she said. What mistake? You told me you killed my mother. Emily came closer. Now I have a reason to kill you. You don't have the courage. No. Emily picked up the knife from the floor in a quick movement and stabbed it into Victor's arm before he could react. I have more courage than you imagine. Victor screamed and dropped the gun. Emily picked up the pistol and pointed it at him. Now, she said, her voice firm, you're going to tell me where Caleb is, and you're going to tell me exactly how my mother died. Victor held his bleeding arm. You don't know what you're getting into. I know exactly what I'm getting into. Emily cocked the gun. I'm getting into revenge. Victor looked at her with a mixture of pain and admiration. You really are Laura's daughter. No, I'm worse than her. Emily came closer to him. She tried to run. I'm going to fight. All right, all right. Victor stood up slowly. Caleb is in a warehouse in the industrial district. My men are waiting for a signal from me to proceed. Then you're going to take me there, and you're going to signal them to release him. And then you're going to tell me exactly how my mother died, and then I'll decide whether to kill you or let you live. Victor laughed despite the pain. You're dangerous. I learned from the best, Emily said. Now move. The warehouse was in an abandoned industrial area on the outskirts of Boston. Emily kept the gun pointed at Victor the entire way, ignoring his protests about the bleeding. You know, Victor said when they stopped in front of the building, your mother said exactly the same words before she died. What words? That she was going to kill me. Victor smiled. She couldn't, just like you won't be able to. Emily didn't respond. She just forced Victor to enter the building. They found Caleb in the basement, tied to a chair as in the photo. He was conscious but hurt. When he saw Emily, his eyes widened. Emily, get out of here, he said. It's a trap. I know. Emily kept the gun pointed at Victor. Untie him. You won't shoot, Victor said. You don't have the courage. Want to test that? Emily moved her finger to the trigger. I've already killed today. Killing again won't make a difference. Victor hesitated. You're bluffing. Your men at my apartment, they won't wake up again. Emily smiled coldly. They tried to stop me from leaving. I didn't like that. Victor looked at her with new understanding. You killed them. I defended myself, just like my mother should have done. Emily came closer. Now untie Caleb, or I'll start shooting at non-vital parts and work my way up. Victor obeyed, untying Caleb with trembling hands. As soon as he was free, Caleb stood up and went to Emily's side. Are you all right? She asked without taking her eyes off Victor. I am now. Caleb took the gun from her hands. My turn. No, Emily said. He's mine. Emily. He killed my mother, Caleb. He's mine. Emily turned to Victor. Now tell me how she died. Victor spat blood on the floor. You won't like the answer. Tell me anyway. Laura came looking for me. She said she wanted to make a deal, that she would give herself in exchange for Caleb never being bothered again. Victor leaned against the wall. She offered to work for me, do anything I wanted as long as I left Caleb alone. Emily felt her heart tighten. And you accepted? I accepted. But there were conditions. Victor smiled cruelly. She would have to cut all ties with her previous life, including you. Lie. She agreed. Your mother agreed to abandon you to save Caleb. Victor laughed. But at the last minute she changed her mind. Said she couldn't leave her little daughter. Try to run. Emily felt tears in her eyes. And then I stopped her permanently. Victor came closer to her. She died screaming your name, Emily. Died regretting having tried to save both of you. Emily couldn't listen anymore. The anger she felt was like fire in her veins, consuming everything in its path. Caleb, she said, her voice frighteningly calm. Leave. Emily, no. Leave. Now. Caleb hesitated, then kissed the top of her head. Don't take too long. When Caleb left, Emily was alone with Victor, the man who had killed her mother, who had tried to buy her, who had threatened Caleb. No, Victor said. Your mother begged for her life in the end. Begged for me to let her see you one more time. Stop talking. She cried a lot, said you were just a child, that you didn't understand why Mommy had to go away. Victor smiled. I almost felt sorry for her. Emily raised the gun. I told you to stop talking. But then I remembered that she owes me a debt, that you both owe me a debt. Victor came closer to her. And now you're going to pay for both. Emily pulled the trigger. The shot echoed in the empty warehouse. Victor fell to the floor, holding his shoulder. That was for my mother, Emily said, approaching him. You don't have the courage to kill me, Victor said, breathless. Emily smiled. You're right. I don't have the courage to kill you. Victor seemed relieved. But I do have the courage to let you die slowly, Emily continued, bleeding, alone, in this abandoned warehouse where no one will find you. Victor tried to get up, but Emily kicked the wound in his arm. He screamed and fell again. You know, Emily said, kneeling beside him, My mother may not have been able to kill you, but she gave me something much better. She gave me a reason." Emily stood up and walked toward the exit. She stopped at the door and turned to Victor. "Oh, and Victor," she said, "just so you know, I lied about having killed your men. They're just unconscious, but when they wake up and find that you've disappeared, what do you think they'll do?" Victor paled. "They'll look for me." "Yes, they will. And when they find you here, injured and defenseless, what do you think they'll think? That you're a strong leader, or that you're an old, weak man who was dominated by a girl?" Victor tried to speak, but Emily had already left. Caleb was waiting, in the car. When Emily got in, he looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Did you kill him?" he asked. "No, but he'll die." Emily leaned back in the seat. "His own men will take care of that when they discover he was humiliated by a woman." Caleb smiled. "You're brilliant." "I learned from you." Emily turned to him. "Now take me home." "Which home?" Emily thought for a moment. "Your home, our home. Wherever it is, as long as we're together." Caleb kissed her hand. Always together. As they drove back to Boston, Emily looked out the window and thought about her mother. Laura had tried to save everyone and had died alone. Emily had chosen a different path. She had fought, had won, had survived. And for the first time since, it all began, she knew exactly who she was. She was Emily Collins. She was Laura's daughter. But she was also much more. She was a woman who didn't run, who didn't hide, who didn't let herself be intimidated. She was a woman who loved a dangerous man and who was dangerous in her own right. She was a woman who had found her place in the world, even if that place was in the shadows, and she wouldn't trade it for anything. The rain had stopped and the stars were beginning to appear in the Boston sky. Emily closed her eyes and smiled. She was finally free. She was finally home. She was finally living her own life, not the life others had chosen for her. And that was all she had ever wanted. The game was over, and she had won. 6 months later, Emily was standing in front of the mirror in Caleb's bathroom, applying dark red lipstick. It was the night of the exhibition opening, and she wanted to be perfect. Not because she needed to impress anyone, but because she had learned to value herself. "You're beautiful," Caleb said, appearing behind her in the mirror. He wore an impeccable black tuxedo and had an expression in his eyes that she knew well by now. Pride, possessiveness, love. "You always say that," Emily replied, turning to adjust his tie. "Because it's always true." Caleb placed his hands on her waist. "Are you ready for tonight?" Emily smiled, born ready. The news of Victor's death had reached them 2 weeks after the confrontation in the warehouse. Officially, he had died in an accident during a business meeting. Unofficially, his own men had tortured him to death when they discovered he had been humiliated by a woman and then abandoned to die. Emily felt no remorse. She felt only a sense of justice served cold, like a long-awaited dish. "Sometimes I wonder," she said, running her fingers over his face, "if you regret finding me." "Why?" "Because I've changed. I'm not the scared girl you met in Chicago anymore." Caleb smiled. "You were never a scared girl. You just didn't know who you really were yet." "And who am I?" "You're the woman who managed to do what your mother never could. You're the woman who saved me from myself." Caleb kissed her softly. "You're the woman who taught me that obsession can become love when it finds the right object." Emily felt warmth spread through her chest. "You're not obsessed anymore?" "I'm obsessed with you every day, but now it's different." Caleb ran his thumbs over her cheeks. "Now it's reciprocal." It was true. Emily had discovered she was capable of loving with the same intensity as Caleb. She had discovered she could be possessive, jealous, consuming. She had discovered she could be dangerous when what she loved was threatened. "Let's go," she said, picking up her purse. "I don't want to be late for my own exhibition." The gallery was full when they arrived. Emily recognized famous faces, important collectors, influential art critics. They were all there to see what she had created. "Nervous?" Caleb asked, placing his hand on her back. "Excited," Emily corrected. "I want them to see what I'm capable of." They walked through the exhibition together, observing visitors' reactions. Emily had created more than a simple exhibition of Soviet art. She had created a narrative about identity, about masks, about the difference between who we are and who we need to be to survive. "It's brilliant," said a voice behind them. Emily turned and saw an elegant, middle-aged woman approaching. She looked vaguely familiar, but Emily couldn't remember where she knew her from. "Thank you," Emily replied. "You don't recognize me, do you?" The woman smiled. "I'm Marina Taylor, Victor Taylor's widow." Emily felt Caleb tense beside her, but she maintained her composure. "I'm sorry for your loss," Emily said calmly. Marina laughed. "Don't be. Victor was a terrible man. I should thank you." Emily said nothing, but Marina continued. "You did what I didn't have the courage to do during 20 years of marriage. You got rid of a monster." Marina came closer. "May I ask you a question?" "Of course. Do you feel guilty?" Emily thought for a moment. "No, I feel free." Marina smiled. "Great answer. Victor killed many people over the years, including your mother. He deserved to die." "You knew about my mother?" "I knew about all of them." Victor liked to boast about his conquests. Marina took a sip of champagne. Laura was special to him. She was the only one who resisted until the end. Emily felt tears in her eyes. "He told me she begged." "He lied. Laura never begged for anything. She spat in his face before she died." Marina touched Emily's arm. "You should be proud of her." "And she would be proud of you." Marina moved away, but stopped and turned. "Oh, and Emily," she said, "don't worry about Victor's other Russian partners. They won't bother you, I made sure of that." Emily frowned. "How?" "Let's say I had some information about them that they prefer to keep secret. Information I obtained during years of unhappy marriage." Marina smiled. "Sometimes, being the invisible wife has its advantages." After Marina left, Emily and Caleb walked in silence for a few minutes. "Are you okay?" Caleb asked. "I'm better than okay. I'm relieved." Emily turned to him. "Now it's really over, isn't it?" "It's really over." Emily smiled and went back to circulating through the exhibition. She received compliments, job offers, invitations to exhibit in other cities, but none of that mattered as much as the look of approval in Caleb's eyes. "Are you proud of me?" she asked when they were finally alone. "I've always been proud of you. Since that first day in Chicago, when you challenged me instead of running." "Away!" Caleb pulled her close. "You're extraordinary, Emily. You're everything I ever dreamed I could have." Emily was about to respond when Alice approached. "Emily, sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who wants to talk to you." Emily looked to where Alice was pointing and saw a young man, perhaps her age, standing near the entrance. He looked nervous but determined. "Who is he?" Emily asked. "He said he's your half-brother." Emily felt her blood freeze. "Half-brother." "He said his name is Nathan Collins, son of Richard Collins." Emily looked at Caleb, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll talk to him," Emily said. The young man approached when he saw her. He had Richard's eyes, but something gentler in his expression. "Emily," he said hesitantly. "That's me." "I'm Nathan, He stopped, not knowing how to continue. "You're my brother," Emily said simply. "I know who you are." Nathan seemed relieved. "Dad told me about you, told me that you left." "I was kicked out," Emily corrected. "There's a difference." "I know. I know what he did." Nathan looked at his shoes. "I came here to apologize. On behalf of the family." Emily studied the young man. He must have been about 20, maybe less. He seemed sincere, but also frightened. "You don't need to apologize for anything," Emily said. "You had no part in what happened." "But I should have known. I should have done something." "You were a child, Nathan. There was nothing you could have done." Nathan looked up. "Dad died." Emily felt a tightness in her chest. "When?" 2 months ago. Heart attack. He was in his office, working late." Nathan hesitated. "He talked about you before he died. Said he regretted everything." Emily didn't know what to feel. Richard had been a terrible father, but he had still been her father. He left a letter for you, Nathan continued, taking an envelope from his pocket. He always hoped you would come back home. Emily took the envelope but didn't open it. Thank you. Emily, Nathan said, I know I have no right to ask this, but could you give me a chance? I'd like to get to know my sister. Emily looked at the boy, because that's what he was, just a boy, and saw something that touched her. He didn't want anything from her. He didn't want money, he didn't want position, he didn't want power, he just wanted a family. Are you studying? Emily asked. Engineering. At MIT. What year? Second. Emily smiled. Have you ever been to Europe? Nathan shook his head. I've never left the United States. How about spending some time here? I can arrange an internship at the gallery. You can learn about the international art market. Nathan's eyes lit up. You would do that? I would do that. Emily touched his shoulder. We're family, Nathan, and family helps each other. Thank you, Nathan said, and Emily saw tears in his eyes. Thank you for giving me a chance. After Nathan left, Emily sat down in one of the gallery chairs and opened Richard's letter. Caleb sat beside her, but said nothing. The letter was short. Emily, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I know I was a terrible father, a cowardly man, a failure in every sense, but I want you to know that I loved you. I always loved you. You were the only good thing I had in my life, and I ruined it because of my own weakness. I hope you have found happiness. I hope you have become the extraordinary woman I always knew you could be. I hope you have found someone who loves you as you deserve to be loved. Take care of Nathan, if you can. He's a good boy, much better than me. He deserves to have a sister like you. I love you, daughter. I always loved you. I always will love you. Richard. Emily folded the letter and put it in her purse. She felt a tear run down her face, but it wasn't from sadness. It was from relief. Finally, she had made peace with the past. Are you okay? Caleb asked. I'm perfect, Emily replied. Finally, I'm perfect. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the last visitors to the exhibition. Caleb, Emily said suddenly. Yes. Do you want to marry me? Caleb turned to her, surprised. Are you proposing to me? I am, Emily smiled. Will you accept? Emily, Caleb stopped and laughed. You're impossible. Yes, I am. Will you accept or not? Caleb stood up and knelt in front of her. Emily Collins, will you marry me? I just asked you to marry me. I know, but I want to do this right. Caleb took a box from his pocket. I've been waiting for the right moment. Emily looked at the box, surprised. You were already planning this? I've been planning this since the first night you spent in my bed. Caleb opened the box, revealing an antique diamond ring. This ring belonged to my grandmother. She said, it should be given to the woman who changed my life forever. Emily extended her left hand. Then you'd better put it on quickly before I change my mind. Caleb put the ring on her finger. Will you regret it? Probably. Emily pulled him up and kissed him. But I'd rather regret marrying you than regret not having tried. You know I'm going to love you with such intensity that it will sometimes be suffocating. I know. You know I'm going to be possessive, jealous, controlling. I know. You know. I'm going to want you every night, every day, forever. Emily smiled. I'm counting on it. Caleb kissed her again, this time with all the passion he felt. Emily responded with the same intensity, knowing she was sealing a fate that would be as beautiful as it was dangerous. Where will we get married? She asked when they separated. Wherever you want. Emily thought for a moment. Miami, on the beach, where my mother was born. Why? Because I want her to be present in some way. I want her to know that her daughter found the love she always sought. Caleb smiled. Miami it is then. And afterwards? Afterwards we live. We love. We create a life together. Caleb ran his fingers through her hair. We do everything your mother never got to do." Emily felt a peace she had never felt before. "Do you think she would approve?" "I think she would be proud. You achieved what she always wanted. You found a love that doesn't diminish you, that doesn't control you, that doesn't destroy you." "You won't destroy me. I'll consume you, I'll possess you, I'll love you with an intensity that will frighten you sometimes." Caleb touched her face. "But I'll never destroy you. You're too strong for that." Emily smiled. "And you're too smart to try. I've learned from my mistakes." "What mistakes?" "Thinking I could possess someone who didn't want to be possessed. Thinking I could force someone to love me. Thinking intensity without reciprocity worked." Caleb pulled her closer. "You taught me that true love is when two people consume each other mutually, not when one person consumes the other." Emily nestled in his arms. "You taught me that I don't need to run to be free, that I can be free by choosing to stay. So is that what we are? Two people who choose to stay?" "No." Emily raised her head and looked into his eyes. "We're two people who can't live without each other. We're two people who have found their other half. We're two people who deserve each other. We're two people who complete each other." Caleb kissed her once more, gently this time. "I love you, Emily Collins." "I love you, Caleb Morrison." And at that moment in the empty gallery, surrounded by the works of art that told stories of identity and transformation, Emily knew she had found her place in the world. It wasn't a safe place. It wasn't a simple place. But it was her place. Chosen by her, built by her, earned by her. It was a place where she could be strong and vulnerable at the same time. Where she could be dangerous and loved. Where she could be herself completely, without masks, without pretensions, without fear. It was a place where she could love and be loved with an intensity that would have frightened the girl she had been. But that was exactly what the woman she had become needed. 3 months later, Emily was standing on Miami Beach, wearing a simple white dress, with flowers in her hair and a smile that lit up her face. Caleb was beside her, elegant in a beige suit, looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Nathan was there, along with Marina Taylor, who had become an unlikely friend. Alice had flown in from Boston for the ceremony. There were also some artists Emily had met, collectors who had become friends, people who had entered her life and made it richer. "Are you ready?" the judge asked. Emily looked at Caleb, at the ocean, at the mountains that surrounded the city. She thought of her mother, of everything she had been through, of all the way she had traveled to get here. "I'm ready," she said. And it was true. Emily was ready for everything, for love, for life, for the future. She was ready to be happy. When the judge declared them husband and wife, Caleb kissed Emily with a passion that made the guests smile and applaud. But Emily barely heard the applause. All she heard was the sound of her own heart beating in sync with his. "I love you, Mrs. Morrison," Caleb whispered in her ear. "I love you, Mr. Morrison," Emily replied. And as they walked along the beach, hand in hand, Emily looked up at the sky and whispered a silent thank you to her mother for giving her strength, to her father for giving her determination, to fate for giving her Caleb. But mostly, she thanked herself for having had the courage to run away, for having had the courage to return, for having had the courage to love, for having had the courage to live. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky gold and red. Emily stopped walking and looked at the view. "What are you thinking about?" Caleb asked. "I'm thinking that I'll never have to run from anything again," Emily replied. "I'm thinking that I've finally found my home." "Where is your home?" Emily turned to him, her eyes shining with love and certainty. "My home is where you are," she said. "It always will be." Caleb smiled and pulled her in for another kiss. And when they finally separated, Emily knew that the story had ended exactly as it should, with love, with passion, with the promise of a future built on the ashes of the past, with the certainty that, no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, forever. And Emily Collins Morrison, who had begun as a frightened girl trying to escape her fate, had become a woman who embraced her fate with open arms. She had become exactly who she was always meant to be. She had become free. She had become loved. She had become complete. The rest was just living, and she could hardly wait to begin.